Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to a journey most peculiar, a tale of elegance gone awry, of art twisted into obsession, and of horses most unnatural. Once dressage was a noble pursuit, a ballet upon hooves, a harmonious waltz between man and beast, where every movement whispered trust and every stride sang of partnership. But alas, the centuries have not been kind. What was once poetry in motion has become, for some, a laboratory of perfection, a crucible where the pursuit of medals and ribbons consumes reason itself. Observe, if you dare, the modern arena, perfectly groomed footing, polished boots, top hats perched with precision, and horses, oh, the horses! Machines of muscle and sinew stretched and folded beyond natural measure. Choreographed emotions as meticulous as they are merciless. Here, dear friends, we peer behind the velvet curtain into the very heart of the beast, the obsession that drives human hands to shape living creatures into spectacles of art or monstrosity. And as we wander further into this haunted arena, consider who truly commands the dance, the rider or the relentless pursuit of perfection itself. Tonight we shall explore the shadows lurking beneath the polished hooves, the elegance hiding in an undercurrent of horror. So steady your nerves, keep a lantern close, and steel your heart, for what you are about to witness is no mere display of equestrian skill. This is the Danse Macabre, a horror story centuries in the making.
Long before the gleam of metals, dressage was born from necessity, an art of survival. On the battlefields of antiquity, precise movement could mean the difference between life and death. In the courts of Renaissance Europe, soldiers and scholars transformed those lessons of war into poetry of motion, the art of ballet on horseback. The great masters spoke not of domination, but of dialogue. They believed a horse should carry itself with joy, its rider guided not by force, but by feel, by subtlety. The goal was not control, but harmony. Xenophon was an ancient Greek soldier, philosopher, historian, and horseman, and he's arguably the world's first recorded equestrian theorist. A student of Socrates, he fought as a cavalry commander and later became an exile from Athens. But what keeps his name alive is his short treatise on horsemanship, written around 350 BCE, the earliest known work devoted entirely to the art of riding and horse care. He rejected harsh methods and gadgets, urging riders to train with gentleness rather than violence. There was emphasis to understanding the mind of the horse and building trust with calm and consistent handling. Above all, he believed the best horse was one who wanted to cooperate, a true partner, not a subjugated beast. One of his most famous lines roughly translates to, "The horse should enjoy himself in the presence of man," 2,000 years before modern horsemanship, and he was already saying it. In the 18th century, France embraced these principles of riding. Teaching kindness and sensitivity, horsemen learned balance and ease in the saddle to perform airs relevés, haute école, classical high school movements emphasizing elevated, collected work. Beneath the chandeliers of the Equestrian Academy of Versailles, in the quiet arenas of Sommer's Cadre Noir, and within the white-pillared halls of the Spanish Riding School of Vienna, this living art endures. True collection was never manufactured. It emerged naturally, born of trust, conditioning, and time. Even today, echoes of that purity remain. These institutions still favor the Baroque breeds, Lipizzanos, Andalusians, Lusitanos, just as the masters of the past did. Their compact strength, agility, and natural ability to collect make them living relics of a philosophy nearly lost to time, that a horse should not be forced into form, but guided towards it. The evolution of competitive dressage is one of the most contentious debates in the equestrian world. Many riders, trainers, and classical judges argue that modern sport has strayed far from its origins, prioritizing spectacle over harmony, flash over correctness, and illusion over true art. Classical riding was built on collection, a horse's natural ability to engage the hindquarters, carry the weight back, and to move in balance with subtle cues from the rider. In those days, breeds like the Spanish Andalusian and Lusitano were horses who could naturally sit, lift, and bend without force. But as the 20th century progressed, warm bloods became the dominant breeds in international competition. They were taller, longer-legged, and often more extravagant in movement. These horses offered visual flair and power. The modern arena began rewarding the illusion of collection, sometimes at the expense of engagement and balance. Flashy gaits, high-stepping trot extensions, and exaggerated suspension became desirable, a stark contrast to the subtle, cadenced elegance of the classical ideals. Some movements, like the piaffe and passage, illustrate this tension most clearly. A correct piaffe is a cadenced, energetic trot in place, with the hindquarters lowering slightly to demonstrate a true sit. Today, many competitive piaffes appear agitated or trotting on the spot, with high, bouncing croups and exaggerated hind leg lifts, and even now they are beginning to lose their rhythm. The passage, once a slow, elevated trot emphasizing lightness and control, can now resemble a rhythmic leap, prioritizing spectacle over correctness. Judging, though guided by a framework, carries inherent subjectivity. Flashy, visually striking performances can receive high marks even when fundamental principles are compromised. Slow-motion replays and social media coverage amplify these issues, revealing flaws that might otherwise go unnoticed in the arena, and fueling a heated debate over flashy versus correct. The implications extend beyond aesthetics. Breeders for extreme movement can create physical and psychological stress in horses. Experts like Temple Grandin warn against single-trait selection, which risks emotional and behavioral problems. Studies of elite dressage horses reveal high frequencies of conflict behaviors, signs of tension, discomfort, or pain, often linked to the training methods that push animals to the limits for competitive success. Equipment and training methods compound the issue. The modern sport sometimes rewards overflexion, harsh aids, or artificially forced positions, incentivizing practices that stray far from classical principles of harmony and partnership. Critics argue that the focus on winning encourages shortcuts, while the visual impression of perfection takes precedence over the well-being of the horse. Modern dressage, then, exists in tension, a world where the echoes of classical harmony are overshadowed by the relentless pursuit of spectacle. The art survives in glimpses: a correctly engaged piaffe, a supple passage, the rare performance where horse and rider move as one. But for many, these moments are ghosts amidst the glitter, reminders of what the sport once was, and what it still could be. The conversation continues, both in the arenas of the world and across social media, forums, and in professional circles. How do we balance beauty, athleticism, and welfare? And can the soul of dressage, once defined by a dialogue and trust, survive the modern pursuit of victory and legend? Even amid the glittering arenas and polished boots of modern dressage, a darker reality lurks behind the curtains. Beneath the pageantry, medals, and applause, instances of abuse persist. Subtle, systemic, and sometimes shocking. While governing bodies like the FBI have rules to protect horses, enforcement is inconsistent, and human ambition often trumps equine welfare. Roll cur, or hyperflexion, is perhaps the most infamous example. This technique forces a horse's head and neck into an unnaturally deep bend, drawing the nose close to the chest. Banned by the FEI, it is nevertheless reportedly used by some riders, producing not elegance but pain, stress, and anxiety. What should be a conversation between horse and rider becomes instead a grim performance of submission. Other forms of abuse hide in plain sight. Over-tightened crank nose bands, constant spur pressure, excessive use of whips, harsh bits, and forceful riding. Each inflicts measurable physical and psychological harm. Jerking the reins, sawing at the bit can break mucous membranes, causing bleeding or even producing a discolored blue tongue from lack of oxygenated blood. Tight nosebands, often seen as cosmetic, increase sensitivity and discomfort. Repeated spur strikes leave skin raw, bruising, and even at times edema. Overwork and neglect are also pervasive. Horses are sometimes made to perform while exhausted or lame, denied adequate rest, food, or water, all to satisfy competitive demands. Even small repetitive pressures, like an unsteady hand, an ill-fitting saddle, a spur that is constantly jabbed, accumulates over time, creating chronic discomfort. These acts may be subtle enough to avoid detection, yet leave lasting damage on the horse's body and mind. The culture of dressage has, historically, relied on whistleblowers and video evidence to enforce ethics. Some riders go to great lengths to conceal injuries or blood from judges, including methods like shoe polish to cover marks caused by spurs. And when abuses are exposed, the path to justice can be slow, inconsistent, and contentious, especially when reputations, sponsorships, and medals are at stake. High-profile cases illustrate the scope of the issue. In 2024, Olympic champion Charlotte Desjardins withdrew from the Paris Games after a 2022 training video surfaced showing repeated whipping. The FEI suspended her for 1 year, a stark reminder that even decorated riders are not beyond scrutiny. Rumors suggest her mentor, Carl Hester, who continues to emphasize classical principles and ethical training, parted ways from her in the aftermath. Despite stating her acceptance of her disciplinary actions, she still holds animosity towards the whistleblowers. Speaking of her whistleblowers, Alicia Dickinson, aptly named, was caught on video overworking an unfit horse using numerous abusive methods that ultimately agitate the horse to the point he causes considerable damage to the barn owner's arena. Heath Ryan, Evie Strasser, Tanya Strasser-Shostak, and Leandro da Silva, names once synonymous with prestige, now appear in headlines alongside terms like abuse, suspension, and disrepute. Perhaps most shocking, in 2025, former Olympian Cesar Para was banned for 15 years after investigators uncovered a pattern of grave and extensive cruelty. Despite a petition of 54 supporters, including professional peers, clients, and veterinarians, the evidence was damning. Video footage reveals the extent of the abuse. I will warn you now, the clip I am about to show you is incredibly disturbing. This is a horse that was being trained by Cesar Para, one who flipped and hit his head so hard blood gushes from his nose and slings onto the wall. The owner reports that he allegedly remarked how they usually just get back up. The response of the horse being in distress was to, of course, clean the blood off the wall. Even revered figures have faced allegations. Andreas Helgestrand, a Danish writer with decades of international acclaim, was publicly exposed in a documentary revealing abusive practices at his stables. Helgestrand was removed from the Danish national team after the TV2 documentary aired. Reported to police, a ban was put into place until at least January 1st, 2025. It was later extended by 3 months due to new evidence. While the FEI did not issue a formal suspension in their records, they acknowledged the allegations and took them seriously under the horse welfare rules. Helgestrand also has decades of questionable practices documented. Bloody mouths on multiple occasions, blue tongues, roll cur, spur marks. Despite the years of documented abuse, writers like Isabel Worth still jump to his defense. The culture of modern dressage, then, is complex. Pressure to win, celebrity status, and social expectation often collide with equine welfare. Training methods that push horses to their physical and mental limits are incentivized when victory, rather than harmony, is the goal. Even whistleblowers risk retaliation or professional isolation. In some cases, those who attempt to expose the abuse are met with hostility, underscoring the systemic challenges in holding writers accountable. But the cracks are beginning to show. Public outrage, viral video evidence, and investigative reporting have forced governing bodies to act with greater scrutiny. Yet for every whistleblower who steps forward and every scandal that makes headlines, countless incidents remain hidden. Whispers behind closed doors, unseen bruises beneath polished coats, and as long as pageantry and spectacle can overshadow welfare, the shadows will remain, haunting arenas where horses are expected to dance to human ambition. This is the modern specter of dressage, a sport where beauty can mask suffering, and where the gleam of medals may conceal a darker truth. And as the cameras roll and when the crowds applaud, one must ask, what price are we willing to pay for perfection? The dance continues, but the soul has long since left the stage. In arenas across the globe, horses move with precision so exacting it borders on mechanical. Every hoof fall, every step, measured and repeated, yet too often devoid of the conversation that once defined the art. What was once a dialogue between rider and horse, a shared understanding built on trust, patience, and subtlety, has become a pursuit of medals, accolades, and legend. The horses' bodies bend and stretch not from joy, but from the demand for visual perfection. The rhythm, the balance, the very essence of harmony is sometimes lost beneath the polished surface. And yet, this is not universal. There remain those who honor the old ways, who resist the pressures of fashion, scoreboards, and flash. Writers like Carl Hester dedicate themselves to classical principles, warm-ups that respect the horse's natural rhythm, hands that never force, and an unwavering commitment to balance and engagement over spectacle. Across Europe, Sommer, Vienna, and Versailles quietly preserve traditions hundreds of years old. And of course, those lesser known. The true lifeblood of the classical way, the students of the art, the ones who will not often be found under shining lights of a grand stadium, but in the golden hour in the summer as they dance with their horses in solitude. Even within modern sport, pockets of resistance exist. Trainers and riders who refuse to sacrifice correctness for glamour, who understand that the best performance arises from partnerships rather than compulsion. They remind us that the principles laid down by Xenophon, Pluvinel, and the Renaissance masters are not extinct. They are living, breathing, and achievable if only the sport would choose to prioritize them. The specter of lost classical dressage lingers not because it has vanished entirely, but because the majority of competitive focus has shifted. The art survives in corners, in the moments when horse and rider truly converse, proving that harmony can still exist amidst the chaos. Can this art be reclaimed, or will modern competitive dressage continue along its current trajectory, a danse macabre, beautiful in precision yet hollow in purpose? The answer lies not solely in the horses, but in the choices of those who guide them. It lies whether riders, judges, breeders, and spectators will demand more than mere spectacle, more than medals and flash, and instead return to the principles that made this art enduring: patience, understanding, balance, respect. The echoes of classical dressage remain, faint but persistent. They whisper in the arenas of Cadre Noir, in the vaulted halls of Vienna, in the gentle collection of Olympia's honor lifted into the air. They remind us that this art was never about forcing perfection, but inviting it. The future of dressage depends on whether we, as stewards of the horse, choose to heed these echoes, or whether we will allow the specter of superficiality and obsession to dictate the movement of generations yet to come. The dance continues. The question is whether it will ever be whole again.